Here's a quick first impressions video on what I thought about the Republican debate. I think the biggest winner of the night actually really surprised me personally, Nikki Haley. If you watch any of my other videos, you know that I was a little bit not on board the Nikki Haley train, but she really came out there and she really came out with fire. And she had a couple heated exchange with a few of the other politicians that were out on the stage, and she actually did very well, even against Vivek Ramaswamy, who I thought would be a much more would be a very difficult sparring partner for her. She actually ended up coming out ahead. I'm going to say she just came out ahead in that exchange against Vivek Ramaswamy. She was talking about Ukraine. She made this point about if Russia wins, then China wins, and she did it in a very, very impassioned way, and she just looked like she took the issue a little bit more seriously than Vivek Ramaswamy, regardless of what you think about Vivek's policy stance on that thing. I don't think that Vivek necessarily got cooked in that exchange. I think that his point is going to land with a certain sector of the Republican voter base, but I think that Nikki Haley really did good in that exchange and in a few other exchanges. Also, in the exchange that she had with Mike Pence, I think she just absolutely washed Mike Pence on this one. And it was the issue of abortion, right? So they were going back and forth on abortion. Nikki Haley came off as much more reasonable, but also still in that conservative lane. And I think she was able to sort of play that off really well. I think that Pence is in a really tough spot because he has to pander to the evangelical vote. He really needs that evangelical vote, but it puts him in very difficult waters when somebody like Nikki Haley articulates sort of the moderate position of the Republican Party when it comes to the issue of abortion. I also think that Pence got hammered from Vivek Ramaswamy in one exchange where they were talking about gun control. And so Pence goes up and he gives a very boring answer to the question, very standard Republican, like things that you've heard a billion times before when it comes to the issue of gun reform and mass violence. And then Vivek Ramaswamy makes a really snappy quip at the beginning, and then he goes on to talk about the national identity crisis, and he really gets into his core messaging. He really gets into his bag, where his strengths are as a public speaker. And that exchange, Pence came off looking completely incapable of handling the situation, and Vivek came off with a very, very strong win in that regard. To finish talking about Vivek Ramaswamy, we got to talk about what he said about the climate. He came off as a conspiracy theorist, at least to me. I don't know about the general voting republic, but I mean, climate change is real. First, let me get that out of the way. But Vivek really goes there on climate. He's like, he does his whole tap dance. Climate change is fake. Burn coal, frack, drill, embrace nuclear. Embrace nuclear is a good one, but the rest of that is BS garbage. And he really comes out there and he gets a pretty mixed reaction from the crowd, pretty strong reaction from the crowd both ways. There's a lot of people booing him, a lot of people wooing and clapping him on. But then Chris Christie comes on and he really hears it from the crowd. But then he hammers him back on this climate change, paints him as an unserious person, and thinking that climate change is false is quite an unserious position. So he hammers him home on that. And then he compares him to Obama, which I thought was really good. Sort of like this charlatan, painting him as a charlatan. Again, Vivek has low name recognition. So if there's somebody out there who may have been a future supporter of Vivek Ramaswamy, but they have a lot of respect for Chris Christie, I think that exchange could have been one part of why people might be hesitant to fully get on board the Vivek Ramaswamy train. Speaking of Chris Christie, I think he had a really good night, and he hit all his talking points. Not anything super crazy. No debate enders, right? No Marco Rubio moment, but nobody was really falling for that. This time around, I think the closest he came was probably a few exchanges he had with Mike Pence, which I think went his favor, but I think Mike Pence had a really rough night, so that just might be Mike Pence having a rough night on his own. Pence also had this really awkward moment where he started to speak, but then the moderator really shut him down. He was trying to speak out of turn, and the moderator really put the hammer to his head, so that was a really embarrassing moment for Mike Pence. A few other people that I want to mention before I get to Ron DeSantis, we'll talk about Ron DeSantis, don't worry, is the first one's Asa Hutchinson. Very weak performance, very off performance. He didn't have any moments. Every time he went up on the stage, I wish they would just cut his mic and cut to somebody else. Because, I mean, we joke about all these Republicans being really boring, but he was especially boring, and he was on stage with Doug Burgum. But I shouldn't be too quick to disrespect Doug Burnham, because I actually think that Doug Burnham came off as, well, not interesting, but less uninteresting than I expected, if that makes any sense at all. I mean, he didn't have a spectacular debate performance, but I actually think he'll go up in the polls because he's at 0.9% nationally, so he can only go up from here. And I don't think he had a terrible debate performance. And also, he broke his ankle. I hope he heals up very quickly, but to, break your ankle and then to come on stage and really push through it. There was a few moments where he really seemed like he was pushing through some kind of pain, but he did it. He, put the team on his back, and he went out there and he executed, and that was kind of cool to watch, I guess. Tim Scott, I think, had a really off night. Again, him and Nikki Haley are very similar, or so I thought. But again, I said this in the pre-debate show. Nikki Haley is just a little cut above your regular standard issue Republican, and that really showed because if you're going to put the performances of Tim Scott and Nikki Haley side by side, it's not even close to a comparison. Nikki Haley is the better candidate out of those two, and I think she will go up in the polls, and Tim Scott's going to go down. And then the last person we got to talk about is Ron DeSantis. Ron DeSantis really, I said this in my preview, it's a put up or shut up time, and he did not do that, okay? He didn't have a bad debate performance, but he did not have a good debate performance by any stretch of the imagination. It's not like he got blown out of the water by anybody in any exchanges. He really didn't put himself out there, and he just had a really flat debate performance. So, again, I think moving forward, the Ron DeSantis campaign is not going to have full control over the narrative anymore, and a lot of people are going to get the spotlight. To close out this video, I'll just give a thumbs up or a thumbs down rating to all of the candidates in the debate. So Mike Pence, I think that he did bad in this debate. I think he's going down in the polls. Nikki Haley, again, really strong. I think she's going up. Chris Christie had a good performance. Nothing too crazy, but I think above average. I think he's going up. Asa Hutchinson, I'm sorry, buddy, but you're going back down in the polls. Not like he can go down any farther, folks. Continuing on, Ron DeSantis, he did flat. He's going down in the polls. He's losing ground to all these other people. Vivek Ramaswamy, he's going up in the polls. I think that he had that national introduction that he was looking for. Again, low name recognition. He's going to get a bump in the polls. And Tim Scott, he's also going down in the polls. Again, I like your mom. I like your story, but you didn't really do well. And then Doug Burgum is going up in the polls, baby. Burgumentum. Let's go. Fire up.